Hi guys. Tonight, imagine waking up in the heart of ancient Greece, a place that gave birth to democracy, philosophy, and the Olympics, but was also a world where most modern comforts simply didn't exist. In this story, you'll discover why life there wasn't just all marble columns and heroics. Most people wouldn't last a day in their sandals. From strange morning rituals to the hidden hardships behind legendary feasts, let's slowly drift back in time and experience a day you might not survive. But before we begin, if you're someone who loves slow, curious dives into forgotten worlds, tap the like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to get to know my viewers better. You open your eyes to the distant sound of roosters, echoing over low, sun-baked hills. The room is dark and cramped, just enough space for a hard straw mat and a battered wooden chest. No glass windows, only a rough linen curtain to block the first rays of the sun. The air is cool, tinged with the smoke of last night's hearth fire, and outside you hear the soft shuffle of sandaled feet as the city wakes. You're already sweating. There's no such thing as air conditioning or even a proper bath to freshen up. Instead, you wash your face with water carried in a clay jug from the nearest well, cold, slightly gritty, and precious enough that wasting it would be unthinkable. Privacy is a luxury you don't have. As family members stir around you, everyone crammed into the same tiny home. Food is simple, maybe a scrap of barley bread, dry and chewy, dipped in watered-down wine. There's no sugar, coffee, or tea to help you wake up. Just the tart taste of grapes and the memory of figs from a better season. The streets outside are dusty and chaotic, filled with merchants setting up their stalls, goats wandering free, and the calls of vendors selling everything from olive oil to woolen cloaks. If you're a man, your day will be dictated by duties, maybe heading to the agora, the public square, to hear the latest news or argue about city matters. If you're a man, life is far more restricted. You rarely leave the home without a male escort, and most of your day is spent grinding grain, weaving cloth, and keeping the family in order. Children rise early to run errands or help with chores, their hands already rough from work. The concept of childhood as a protected, innocent time doesn't exist. Kids are expected to contribute as soon as they can walk. As the morning wears on, the sun grows hotter, and the smell of smoke and sweat clings to everyone. Even the wealthy aren't immune to discomfort. While a few rich households boast separate rooms and a tiny inner courtyard, most people's entire world is one single crowded space. Hygiene is basic at best. No soap, no showers, just a communal sponge in a clay basin or a quick dunk at a public fountain. Lice and fleas are a fact of life, and even the most famous philosophers scratch at their robes when they think no one's looking. As noon approaches, you start to notice your stomach rumbling, but meals are modest. Lunch might be more bread, some olives, a little goat cheese if you're lucky, and perhaps a handful of dried dates. Meat is rare and expensive, reserved for festival days or sacrifices to the gods, unless you're a slave, in which case you make do with even less. Drinking water can be risky. Wells sometimes go foul, and everyone mixes wine with water to make it safer, giving everything a faint sour tang. There are no forks, just hands and the occasional wooden spoon. The work never stops. If you're not tending a stall, you're hauling water, mending nets, or pounding grain. Even the arts, music, poetry, or athletics, require effort, and only a lucky few can devote time to such pursuits. By mid-afternoon, the heat becomes almost unbearable, forcing many to take refuge indoors, napping in the shade if they can. But the city doesn't really sleep. In the next part, you'll see how even leisure in ancient Greece came with its own hidden dangers and exhausting demands. The day presses on, and the relentless Mediterranean sun drives people to the shade of their homes or to the porticos of public buildings where the faintest breeze might offer a moment's relief. There are no cool drinks waiting in the kitchen, no ice, no chilled lemonade, just more tepid water or wine. You might dream of a nap, but privacy is nearly impossible in a house packed with siblings, cousins, or even distant relatives, all sharing the same space. The noise of the city outside never truly fades. There's always a clatter, the bray of donkeys, a chorus of street vendors, and the sharp bark of a neighbor's dog. For most men, the break from work doesn't mean true rest. If you're a citizen, you're expected to take part in the affairs of the city, which means walking to the agora, where the hot stones can burn your feet even through worn sandals. There, you might spend hours standing, debating, or listening to orators and politicians, never knowing if today's topic will be mere gossip or a decision that will shape the city's future. The agora isn't just a place for politics. It's the beating heart of ancient Greek life, a marketplace, a social hub, and sometimes a battleground for ideas. But it's also chaotic, dirty, and loud, packed with strangers from across the world, some friendly, others looking for trouble or profit. Pickpockets prowl the crowds, and tempers flare easily in the heat. If you're a foreigner, you're watched with suspicion, often forced to pay special taxes and excluded from decisions. Women and slaves, meanwhile, are rarely seen here. Their worlds are much smaller, their voices seldom heard beyond the walls of home. If you're a woman, you return to the never-ending routine of spinning thread, weaving, or tending the hearth, always under the watchful eye of older relatives who enforce strict customs. Even a simple stroll outside can bring gossip, or worse, so most women pass the hours in the company of other women and children, swapping stories as their hands work tirelessly. The myth of endless feasts and luxury is mostly just that, a myth. Real meals are repetitive and humble, and most people feel the pinch of hunger, especially after a poor harvest. Disease is a constant threat, creeping in through dirty streets, bad water, and wounds that rarely heal cleanly. There are no antibiotics, no modern medicine, only herbal remedies and prayers to the gods. A scratch can turn deadly, and epidemics sometimes sweep through the city, leaving sorrow in their wake. The Greeks worship a pantheon of gods, but piety brings its own burdens, constant offerings, rituals, and the ever-present fear of divine displeasure. You might stop at a small shrine on your way home, leaving a handful of barley or a few drops of oil, hoping to win favor or avoid misfortune. Superstition runs deep, and every shadow or unexpected event can be seen as a sign from above. If you're a child, games are simple: rolling hoops, wrestling, chasing chickens, but punishment for mischief is swift and often harsh. There's no coddling. Life is too hard for sentimentality. As the afternoon stretches on, the work resumes, carrying water, tending animals, cleaning the cramped living space. If you're a craftsman, you labor in a dim workshop, the air thick with dust, sweat, and the smell of hot metal or clay. There's no protection for your hands or lungs, and injuries are common. Slaves and servants bear the brunt of the hardest work, their lives tightly controlled by masters, their futures uncertain, and their suffering largely invisible to those above them. Freedom is precious and rare, and the threat of losing it always looms. As evening approaches, the city stirs again. Fires are lit, and the narrow alleys fill with the sense of roasting vegetables, burnt bread, and, rarely, meat. You gather with family for a meal that is brief and practical, shared by the flickering light of a small oil lamp. Conversation is often quiet, punctuated by stories of the day, or old legends meant to distract from hunger or fatigue. You watch as the shadows grow long, and night descends on the city, bringing new challenges and a fleeting sense of peace that never quite lasts. In the next part, you'll see what dangers and discomforts the ancient Greek night brings. As dusk falls over ancient Greece, the heat of the day slowly fades, replaced by a deep, creeping chill that settles in the stone streets and earthen walls. There's no electricity to cast away the darkness, only a few dim oil lamps or torches that flicker uncertainly, sending shadows dancing across cramped rooms. For most people, nighttime means retreating inside, barring the rough wooden door and gathering close to loved ones for warmth and safety. The city, once vibrant with noise, grows eerily quiet except for the distant laughter of a few drunken revelers or the mournful howling of stray dogs scavenging for scraps. Fear settles in. Crime rises after sundown. Without any organized police force, it falls to ordinary citizens or small local patrols to keep an uneasy peace. But danger lurks in every shadowed alley. If you must venture out at night, maybe to check on animals or fetch water, you move quickly, clutching your cloak tight, hoping to avoid trouble. The darkness is not just inconvenient, it is deeply intimidating, a space where old superstitions and real threats blend together. Many people believe in evil spirits, omens, and the wrath of gods, so strange sounds or sudden gusts of wind are enough to send shivers through the bravest hearts. It's not just fear you contend with. The night brings new discomforts. Insects swarm through open windows, drawn to the faint light and smell of food, and biting flies and mosquitoes make it nearly impossible to rest peacefully. There are no screens to keep them out, no bug spray or ointments, just swatting, scratching, and resignation. Beds are primitive, often just straw or bundled reeds spread on the ground. The lucky might have a rough mattress stuffed with wool, but most simply toss and turn on whatever they can find. Privacy is still rare, and you might share your sleeping space with siblings, grandparents, or even strangers if the family is large. The night air grows damp, seeping into bones and making old injuries ache. Illness thrives here. Coughs and fevers spread quickly through crowded homes, and there's little hope for real rest if you're sick. If the gods are kind, the night will be uneventful, but many evenings are interrupted by urgent needs. A baby crying, a neighbor calling for help, or the crash of a storage jar knocked over by a rat. You wake easily, half listening for any signs of trouble, always alert to the world outside your thin walls. Even dreams can be troubling. The Greeks believed dreams could carry messages from the gods or warn of impending disaster, so a bad night's sleep might leave you anxious and distracted the next day. Children especially feel the strain. They cling to parents for comfort, but there are no nightlights or soft lullabies, only the quiet hum of insects and the occasional bark from the street. Hygiene does not pause for nightfall. If nature calls, you might make a quick trip to a chamber pot or step outside into a dark corner, always wary of what else might be lurking. The concept of indoor plumbing is centuries away. Sewers are primitive, and foul smells often hang in the air. Personal safety remains uncertain, especially for the vulnerable. Women and slaves face unique risks. The rules that govern daytime behavior do not always apply after dark, and even the best-guarded homes are not immune to accidents or violence. If you are lucky enough to sleep, it is a fitful rest, haunted by the worries of hunger, illness, or what tomorrow will bring. The night is long, but as the first pale light of dawn creeps over the hills, hope returns, and the cycle of survival in ancient Greece begins again. Next, we'll see what awaits you when you face the expectations and rituals of a new day in this challenging world. The first rays of morning in ancient Greece are neither gentle nor leisurely. There are no alarm clocks, just the instinctive stirrings of people who know that every moment of daylight must be used. Roosters crow, dogs bark, and soon the air is filled with the dull scrape of hand mills grinding barley into flour, mothers urging children to wake, and the steady march of footsteps as men and boys prepare to greet the day's obligations. For most, there's no time for lingering. Men may head out to work the fields or join others at the marketplace. Women and girls launch into chores, cleaning the home, tending the hearth, preparing the day's first simple meal. No one is spared from work, young or old, free or enslaved. Even the elderly, if able, might be weaving baskets, sorting food stores, or watching small children. The smallest children often scamper about, running errands or helping with whatever their hands can manage, learning early that idleness is not tolerated in a world where survival is never guaranteed. Meals are quick and functional: a heel of bread, a smear of goat cheese, sometimes a bit of honey or a few olives, if fortune smiled at the last market. The water is poured from a clay jug, the same one used the day before, and if you're lucky, it's relatively clean. Cups are shared, hands wiped on tunics, and all the while, an eye is kept on the dwindling supplies, always aware that drought or poor trade can leave a family hungry for weeks. The concept of abundance is foreign to most. Special foods, meats, sweets, rare fruits, are reserved for religious festivals, or the rare celebration when the whole city might come together to honor a god or mark a great victory. These days are filled with ritual and spectacle: sacrifices in temple courtyards, processions through the streets, musicians and dancers weaving between smoke and cheers. But for the rest of the year, food is plain and repetitive, and the rituals of daily life carry the same importance as those of the grandest festivals. Hygiene, too, follows strict patterns. With no soaps as we know them, people use sand, ash, or oil to scrub their skin, sometimes scraping themselves with curved tools called strigils. Communal baths exist in larger cities, but for most, bathing is infrequent and practical, a chore rather than a luxury. Infections and skin problems are common, and the remedies, oils, herbs, the prayers of mothers, are often little match for reality. Clothing is another reminder of the era's limitations. Tunics and cloaks are hand-woven, dyed, with whatever colors nature provides. Most people have just one or two changes, and everything is patched, mended, and handed down through generations. Shoes are simple sandals, repaired countless times, offering little protection against stones, thorns, or cold mud. A brisk walk to the fields or markets is a test for bare feet, and injuries, however minor, can linger for weeks or months. The rhythm of the day is ruled by necessity. Farmers rise with the sun to plow rocky fields, hoping for a good harvest. Craftsmen work in small, stuffy workshops, sometimes from dawn until dusk, their hands stained and sore from repetitive tasks. The educated elite, the philosophers, poets, and politicians, are a rare breed, their lives full of discussion, teaching, and debate. But even they are subject to the constraints of their world: hunger, disease, the unpredictable moods of the gods. For most, each day is a cycle of effort and endurance, a constant negotiation with nature, neighbors, and fate itself. And yet, through all the hardship, a kind of quiet pride emerges, the knowledge that survival is itself an accomplishment in a world that asks so much and gives so little in return. Next, we'll follow the footsteps of an ordinary citizen as the day's duties and social expectations begin to shape their every move, testing not just their strength but their spirit. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the expectations and routines of ancient Greek society become impossible to ignore. Whether you are a citizen, a resident alien, or a slave, you move through a world defined by custom, duty, and reputation. Social roles are rigid. Every person has their place, and few dare to challenge the order. If you are a free male citizen, your life revolves around the public sphere. The agora calls, a bustling, noisy square where politics and trade intermingle. Here, you might spend hours debating the news of the day, listening to philosophers expound on virtue, or bartering with merchants over jars of oil and sacks of grain. The air is thick with voices, punctuated by the laughter of young men and the sharp rebukes of elders. But there is no privacy, and status matters. Those with money and powerful friends dominate the conversation, while outsiders and the poor linger at the edges, hoping for scraps of news or employment. Women live in a different world, mostly confined to the household. Their work is endless: grinding grain, spinning wool, preparing meals, tending to children, managing servants or slaves if the family is fortunate enough to have them. Every movement is watched by relatives or neighbors, and gossip is as dangerous as any weapon. A woman's reputation is her family's reputation, and a careless word or accidental encounter could have lasting consequences. Girls learn the rules early, practicing obedience, modesty, and hard work, their dreams quietly shaped by stories of legendary heroines or wise goddesses. Children have their own responsibilities, often treated as miniature adults by the time they are 7 or 8. Boys might run errands for their fathers, train for future military service, or help with work in the fields. Girls assist their mothers, learning domestic skills and observing the rituals that mark every season and every turning point in life. There are few toys and little time for play. Even games serve to prepare the young for their adult roles. Slaves, meanwhile, form the invisible backbone of society, performing the most grueling and thankless tasks. Some are captured in war, others born into servitude. Their days blur together in a cycle of labor, hunger, and submission, their voices seldom heard and their suffering rarely acknowledged. Punishments are harsh and escape nearly impossible. Even in a city celebrated for its thinkers and poets, the fate of a slave is brutal and uncertain. For everyone, reputation is everything. Honor and shame are the currency of social life. A careless insult or public failure can haunt you for years, while a single act of bravery or generosity might lift your family's name for generations. The pressure to conform is immense. Individual desires are always balanced against the needs of family, city, and tradition. At every turn, rituals reinforce the social order: prayers and sacrifices at small household shrines, formal greetings in the street, elaborate ceremonies for births, marriages, and funerals. The gods are never far away, their favor sought in every moment of uncertainty or hope. And yet, even as the weight of expectation presses down, there are moments of joy: laughter shared over a simple meal, music drifting through an open window, a sudden breeze cooling tired faces. These small comforts offer a reminder that, in the harsh world of ancient Greece, resilience is found not just in strength or cunning, but in the quiet endurance of daily life. Next, you'll see how the rhythms of work and social obligation give way to the pressures and dangers of the afternoon, when survival means more than just following the rules. It demands constant vigilance and the wisdom of experience. As midday approaches in ancient Greece, the sun blazes down with a fierce and inescapable intensity. The streets grow quieter as people retreat indoors, seeking what little relief they can find in the shade of their cramped, sun-baked homes. The air inside is thick and stifling, swirling with the lingering smells of sweat, cooking fires, and bodies pressed close together. There are no fans or cool stone floors to ease the heat, just patience, damp cloths, and the occasional hope for a breeze. Even the animals seem to hide, chickens tucking themselves beneath benches and goats dozing in whatever scraps of shadow are left. Yet, for most people, there is little time to rest. The afternoon is a period of hard work, the chores never ending. Farmers toil in the fields beneath the blazing sky, tending olives and grapes, coaxing life from the dry, rocky soil. Artisans bend over their benches, weaving baskets, shaping clay, or hammering iron, their hands rough and their brows beaded with sweat. Housewives, too, press on, preparing food, mending clothes, teaching daughters the endless routines that keep the household running. Children help where they can, fetching water, shooing away pests, or simply learning to bear the discomforts of daily life without complaint. The pace of life is relentless, and the struggle to keep up is visible in every tired step and furrowed brow. Hunger is a constant companion, gnawing quietly at the edges of every task. The midday meal is brief, a wedge of bread, perhaps a few olives or some cheese, if the household is fortunate. Water is rationed carefully, always in fear that wells might dry up or become fouled. The risk of illness lurks everywhere, from the grit in a drinking cup to the flies buzzing over a bowl of fruit. Medicine is primitive and uncertain. Most people rely on herbal remedies, old wives' tales, or prayers to the gods. Even a simple fever can turn deadly, and the memory of lost friends and family hangs heavy in the air. The city's sounds change with the heat. The distant chatter of the agora fades, replaced by the rhythmic thud of looms, the sharp call of a peddler selling his last wares before the sun sets, the weary song of a mother rocking a restless baby. Occasionally, a commotion erupts, a quarrel between neighbors, the cry of an injured animal, the excited announcement of a traveler returned from distant lands. These moments of drama or excitement break the monotony, but they are brief, quickly swallowed by the routines and realities of life. As the afternoon stretches on, tempers may flare in the heat, and fatigue makes everyone less patient. It's easy to forget the ideals of philosophy and democracy when your stomach aches and sweat stings your eyes. Even the wealthy feel the strain. Their lives may be more comfortable, but they too are at the mercy of the climate, fate, and the unpredictable will of the gods. Shadows finally begin to lengthen, and a sense of anticipation grows. Soon, the hardest work of the day will end, and for a brief window the city will come alive again as families prepare for the evening meal and the rituals that signal the approach of night. In the next part, we'll step into these cool hours and discover how ancient Greeks found rest, community, and fleeting moments of peace in a world that demanded so much from everyone. As the sun dips lower and the suffocating heat finally loosens its grip, ancient Greek cities and villages slowly awaken from their afternoon hush. The first cool breezes of evening drift in, bringing a measure of relief, and people gather in courtyards, narrow lanes, or around small, smoky hearths to prepare the evening meal. This time is precious, a chance to come together, share news, and, if fortune allows, briefly forget the trials of the day. The meal itself is usually humble: more bread, perhaps a stew of lentils or beans, and on lucky days, a few scraps of salted fish, roasted vegetables, or a drizzle of precious olive oil. If you are wealthy, there might be a larger spread, with fruit, cheese, and a little meat. But for most, the fare is simple and meant to stretch. The entire family eats together, sometimes with friends or neighbors squeezed in, everyone talking over one another in a tangle of voices. Evenings offer a rare chance to relax, but leisure is shaped by tradition. In many homes, the elders tell stories, tales of ancient heroes, the clever tricks of the gods, or the lessons learned from past mistakes. Children listen, wide-eyed, knowing that these stories are more than entertainment. They are a kind of education, a thread connecting each generation to the last. Music might float through the air, a lyre strummed by a brother, the soft singing of a mother or grandmother as she works. There are no radios, no screens, only the simple, direct pleasure of voices and melodies echoing through the gathering dusk. For the wealthy, evenings can include gatherings known as symposia, where men recline on couches, drink diluted wine, and debate philosophy, politics, or poetry. Women, unless entertainers or slaves, are rarely present, and the events are marked by strict rituals and etiquette. These gatherings can be lively, with laughter and heated arguments, but they can also turn rowdy or even dangerous when tempers flare and wine flows too freely. For everyone else, the focus is on family and survival. As darkness deepens, families clean up by lamplight, saving scraps for the morning and setting out water and simple bedding. There are no locks as we know them, just wooden bars across doors, and the hope that neighbors will keep watch. Fear of thieves, wild animals, or misfortune is real, and prayers are offered to household gods for protection through the night. Baths are rare, but sometimes, if water is available, children are wiped clean with damp cloths, or a basin of well water is passed around, everyone taking a turn. Hygiene is basic, but a little cleanliness is cherished in a dusty world. The city grows quiet again, the voices fade, and the only sounds are the chirp of insects, the distant bark of dogs, and the last crackle of the fire. Fatigue settles in, but sleep does not always come easily. The mind turns over worries, the next day's chores, a sick child, an unpaid debt, the possibility of war or famine. And so, as ancient Greece slips into darkness, you lie awake and listen, hoping that the cool night air will bring some measure of peace and renewal. In the next part, we'll follow a restless night and learn how ancient Greeks faced their fears, their dreams, and the uncertainties that each new dawn would bring. Night in ancient Greece is rarely silent, and true rest can be elusive. Long after meals are finished and lamps extinguished, the world remains alive with subtle movement and half-heard sounds. The close quarters of most homes mean you share space with parents, siblings, and sometimes servants or guests. Every cough, whisper, or restless turn is audible in the darkness, and privacy is a luxury few enjoy. Sleep is often fitful. The hard straw mats or worn blankets offer little comfort, and the night air, though cooler, can be damp and chilly, especially outside the peak of summer. You may drift off only to wake from a neighbor's argument, a distant dog barking, or the uncertain creak of a gate in the wind. The city's defenses are simple, and danger always lurks in the dark. Petty thieves, wild animals, or even a sudden fire. Most Greeks are deeply superstitious. Shadows flickering on the walls, or a strange sound outside the window can send chills through even the bravest. Stories of spirits, omens, and the wrath of vengeful gods are common, passed from generation to generation, and never far from anyone's mind. If illness stalks the household, the night can become truly long. There are no doctors as we know them, just herbalists, prayers, and the hope that a fever will break before dawn. Parents soothe children with stories and songs, sometimes placing amulets under pillows to ward off evil. For slaves and the poor, sleep is even more uncertain, stolen between chores or found in crowded, cold corners. Night is also a time for dreams, and the Greeks see dreams as messages from the divine or hints of the future. A pleasant dream is celebrated, but a nightmare can bring anxiety and a rush to offer sacrifices or seek advice from elders. Sometimes, families wake before sunrise to pray or consult a priest, hoping for reassurance that all will be well. As dawn approaches, the restless energy of the night slowly gives way to a new day's anxieties. The rooster crows, signaling the return of light and the start of chores. There is no time to linger over the night's troubles. Instead, everyone moves quickly. Children fetch water, women sweep the floors, men prepare for work in the fields or at the marketplace. The worries of the night are pushed aside by the urgent demands of survival. Yet each morning also brings a sense of resilience. Surviving another night, especially when the world outside is so unpredictable, feels like a small victory. Neighbors greet each other with nods and brief exchanges about the evening's disturbances or good omens. Life continues, and the routines that sustain so many generations resume their steady march. In the next part, we'll step outside to join the early risers, experiencing the city's first light, the rush of new commerce, and the quiet strength it takes just to face another ordinary day in the heart of ancient Greece. As the sky turns pale and the first rays of sunlight spill over tiled rooftops, the city stirs with the energy of a new day. Early risers hurry into the streets, eager to claim the best spot in the marketplace or to begin chores before the heat grows oppressive. Merchants set up their stalls, arranging olives, bread, wine, and pottery with practiced hands. Farmers shuffle in from the outskirts, leading donkeys heavy with baskets of figs, onions, or clay jars. The air is filled with a mingled sense of baking bread, animal sweat, and the salty tang of the distant sea. For ordinary people, the morning hours are critical. Every task must be completed before midday when the sun grows fierce and tempers short. Housewives rush to the well before the crowd gathers, filling clay jugs and chatting in low voices about family news or neighborhood gossip. Children dash through the maze of narrow lanes, delivering messages, running errands, or chasing after stray animals. In this world, everyone knows their role and what's expected of them, for any lapse could bring shame or hardship upon the entire household. While the city hums with purpose, it is not without its tensions. The push and shove of crowds in the agora is an everyday test of patience and cunning. Pickpockets blend with honest traders, and travelers from far-off lands barter in strange accents, their clothing and manners marking them as outsiders. Deals are struck with a handshake, a shouted promise, or the exchange of a small token. Arguments over prices can turn into heated debates, sometimes drawing a crowd eager for entertainment. And always, in the background, is the presence of the city's ruling class, men in fine cloaks who debate laws and policy, their every word shaping the fate of those around them. Yet, for all its bustle, the city is also a place of cooperation. Neighbors share tools, swap food, and band together to fix broken walls or help at births and funerals. Bonds of friendship and kinship are woven tightly, for everyone depends on each other when disaster strikes. Fires, floods, or outbreaks of disease can devastate entire neighborhoods, and there is little outside help to be found. In such moments, generosity and resilience matter more than wealth or status. As the morning unfolds, religious rituals take center stage. It is common to see people pause by a small roadside shrine, leaving a pinch of grain or a splash of oil as an offering. Priests move through the city, preparing for festivals or tending sacred fires. Children learn the prayers by heart, reciting them as naturally as their names. The gods are part of daily life, present in every blessing, every fear, every hope for rain or safe passage across the sea. For some, the day's work will continue in quiet solitude, a fisherman mending his nets, a potter shaping clay, a weaver spinning wool by lamplight. For others, there are crowds, contracts, and the unending dance of social life. Through it all, survival depends not just on effort, but on adaptability, wit, and the ability to read the moods of both neighbors and the ever-watchful gods. In the next part, we'll explore how, beneath this surface of routine and ritual, the reality of hardship and the constant threat of misfortune shape every decision, testing the endurance of those who call ancient Greece home. Beneath the lively rhythms and colorful rituals of daily life, ancient Greece is a land shadowed by uncertainty and hardship. No matter how carefully one plans or how devoutly one prays, misfortune can strike with terrifying speed. The city's narrow streets are filled with hidden dangers. Disease, injury, and hunger are constant companions for most. A sudden storm can destroy crops. A fire can sweep through crowded houses before anyone can respond. There is little safety net. If disaster comes, families must rely on their own wits or the mercy of neighbors. Medicine remains primitive, so a simple wound or fever can quickly turn deadly. Most people trust in herbs, poultices, and the advice of experienced elders. A few visit healers, who claim knowledge of special cures, but results are uncertain, and some remedies cause more harm than good. Priests are called upon to intercede with the gods, offering sacrifices and chanting prayers. But even the most faithful know that divine favor is fickle. Wealth does not guarantee safety, but poverty is especially harsh. The poor labor from dawn until dusk, often going to bed hungry or cold. Malnutrition is common, and the weakest, children and the elderly, suffer most. Those who have nothing are forced to beg in the agora or hire themselves out for the lowest wages. Slavery is a grim reality, and the threat of falling into debt and losing one's freedom hangs over many families. Debtors can be forced to work off what they owe, and families may be split apart by misfortune. Yet even for the prosperous, fortune is unreliable. Political instability, war, or the whims of the city's leaders can upend lives overnight. Alliances shift, enemies attack, and a once thriving trade can collapse in a single season. Even the powerful watch the skies in the marketplace anxiously, knowing that fate is never fully under their control. Superstition shapes many choices. Omens, an unexpected animal, a strange dream, or an unseasonable wind can prompt people to delay travel, change plans, or offer additional sacrifices. The will of the gods is interpreted through signs and stories, and no one wants to risk angering the divine. Each day's end brings not just relief but a sense of accomplishment, a victory over forces that are always poised to overwhelm. And yet, there is a stubborn resilience in the people. Community matters. Neighbors share food, help repair damage, and gather for festivals that lift spirits and reinforce bonds. Even in hardship, laughter and song can be found. Children play in dusty streets, friends swap stories, and families cling together, finding hope in the small moments that break the grind of daily survival. The rhythm of work, worship, and rest provides comfort, a structure that lets people endure the unpredictable blows of fate. Next, you'll see how, even as the shadow of hardship lingers, ancient Greeks carve out spaces for joy and creativity through art, competition, and the pursuit of beauty, seeking meaning beyond the relentless struggle to survive. Despite all the hardships and daily struggles, the people of ancient Greece find ways to nurture joy, pride, and a deep sense of beauty in their lives. Art, music, and athletic competition are woven into the very fabric of society, offering both escape and meaning beyond mere survival. The Greeks believed that excellence, what they call arete, is not just for the privileged, but a pursuit for all, whether in running, wrestling, poetry, or craftsmanship. Even the poorest citizens can feel the thrill of the Olympic Games, the pride of a neighbor's victory, or the delight of a well-told tale. In the marketplace, a potter paints scenes of heroes and gods onto clay jars, each brushstroke telling a story to anyone who stops to look. Young boys practice throwing javelins or racing barefoot across dusty courtyards, their laughter echoing between stone walls. Musicians gather in the agora, plucking lyres or blowing into reed pipes, their melodies drifting through the city and lifting heavy hearts. For many, these simple pleasures are as important as bread or shelter. Religious festivals bring communities together, sometimes for days at a time. Streets are decorated with garlands, and people wear their best clothes. Sacrifices are offered, dances performed, and contests held, ranging from athletic competitions to dramatic recitations. Women may not compete in the games, but they play vital roles in preparations, songs, and rituals, ensuring the smooth flow of tradition. Children watch wide-eyed, dreaming of their own moments of glory or of stories they will one day pass on. The theater is another cornerstone of Greek life. Even small towns host performances, with audiences gathering to watch comedies and tragedies that reflect the hopes and fears of the community. The actors wear elaborate masks, and the stories they tell are often familiar, drawn from the shared pool of myth and legend. These performances provide catharsis, a shared release of emotion and tension, and foster a sense of unity. Artisans, meanwhile, express their skills in every aspect of daily life. In the graceful lines of a painted vase, the balanced form of a marble statue, or the intricate patterns woven into a cloak. Every object has meaning, and beauty is valued even in the simplest tools. Yet, the pursuit of excellence is demanding. Children train for years to compete in games, artisans labor tirelessly to perfect their crafts, and poets struggle for the right word or image. Failure is common, and only a few achieve lasting fame. Still, the effort itself is celebrated, and the joy of trying, of pushing the limits of the possible, becomes a small rebellion against hardship. In these moments, people can forget the hunger, the dust, and the weight of tradition. They find connection with the gods, with their neighbors, and with a larger sense of purpose that carries them through the hardest days. In the next part, we'll return to the quieter side of Greek life, following the rhythms of family and friendship, and seeing how even the smallest acts of kindness and routine help people endure the challenges of a world that is as unforgiving as it is inspiring. For all the drama of festivals and competitions, much of life in ancient Greece revolves around quieter routines, those small, repeated acts of care that keep families and friendships alive. The home, humble or grand, is the heart of daily survival. In its courtyard, mothers tend herbs or knead bread, while older siblings watch over the young, telling stories and sharing laughter as their hands work. Fathers teach their sons how to tend vines or repair a broken wheel, while daughters learn the secrets of spinning, weaving, and managing the household accounts. Meals are a time for gathering and reflection, a brief pause amid the demands of the day. Conversation drifts from market prices to the latest city news, to tales of distant relatives or the unpredictable moods of the gods. Sometimes a neighbor joins, bringing fresh figs or borrowed tools, and gossip or advice is exchanged as naturally as bread is broken. Hospitality is sacred. Even the poorest family will share what little they have with a guest, believing that kindness is both a virtue and an offering to the gods themselves. Friendships are formed in the thick of everyday labor, in shared burdens and triumphs. Two women grinding grain together may quietly bond over dreams for their children, while men laboring side by side in a vineyard swap news, jokes, and warnings about the weather. Even children, competing at games or working at chores, forge ties that will shape their future alliances and marriages. In this world, the concept of privacy is almost unknown, and secrets are rare. Everyone's life unfolds in full view of neighbors who watch, judge, and support each other in equal measure. The bonds of family and community are tested regularly by hardship, illness, crop failure, or the death of a loved one, but the response is almost always collective. When disaster strikes, women organize meals for grieving families, men pool resources to rebuild a damaged roof, and even strangers may offer comfort or a place to sleep. Such solidarity is both practical and spiritual, for to be alone is to be vulnerable not just to misfortune, but to the suspicion of the community and the gods. Rituals mark every passage: a child's first tooth, a coming-of-age haircut, a wedding, or a funeral. Each event brings people together, reaffirming connections and shared values. Prayers and offerings are made, songs are sung, and the rhythms of the year are felt in every household. The pace is slow, the burdens heavy, but the persistence of kindness and the habit of shared struggle allow even the poorest families to find moments of comfort. And so, as each evening falls, families gather by lamp or hearth, sharing food and stories, hopeful that the strength of their ties will see them safely through another day. In the next part, we'll step back out into the streets, where the wider world, full of strangers, travelers, and dangers, awaits, and where survival depends as much on watchfulness and adaptability as on hard work or good fortune. Beyond the threshold of home, the streets of ancient Greece are alive with a different rhythm, a constant flow of travelers, traders, soldiers, and strangers, each carrying news, goods, and the possibility of both fortune and trouble. The city is a patchwork of neighborhoods, some lively and safe, others dark and unpredictable after sunset. The agora, once busy with daytime commerce, now draws the curious and the bold, who linger in its fading light to trade rumors, hear the last calls of merchants, or watch as street performers try to earn a few extra coins before the city grows still. Travelers from distant lands mingle with locals, bringing stories of far-off wars, strange customs, and new ideas. Their clothes, languages, and manners mark them as outsiders, and while many are welcomed for the news or wealth they bring, others are met with suspicion or envy. Arguments sometimes flare between locals and newcomers, and accusations of cheating or disrespect can turn dangerous, especially when tempers run high or a festival's wine has flowed too freely. City guards, if they exist at all, are few, and most disputes are settled by those involved, with neighbors stepping in only when violence threatens to spill over. The night is when shadows lengthen and anxiety grows. Honest folk hurry home, checking bolts and bars, lighting lamps in the hope of deterring thieves or worse. Gangs of restless youths or desperate men prowl the alleys, their faces hidden and intentions uncertain. Wild dogs and rats search for scraps, adding to the sense that darkness belongs to those willing to take what they want. For women, the city's dangers are doubled. Even during the day, they move cautiously and seldom without company, aware that a careless word or encounter can threaten both safety and reputation. Some women, however, priestesses, healers, or market vendors, earn respect through knowledge, skill, or courage, carving out their own influence in a world built for men. Slaves, sent on errands at night or forced to sleep in doorways, bear the greatest risk of all, watched by everyone but protected by no one. The presence of the gods is felt keenly in these streets. Small shrines stand at corners, marked by ribbons or bits of fruit, where passers-by pause to pray for protection or good luck. Superstitions thrive, and a strange animal or an ill-timed sneeze can be seen as a sign to turn back or change one's path. Priests and oracles sometimes appear in public, offering blessings or warnings in exchange for coins. Every journey, no matter how brief, is shaped by ritual and wariness. Yet, amid the uncertainty, there are moments of kindness. An old woman sharing bread with a beggar, a shopkeeper calling out the news, children giggling as they skip between market stalls. These flashes of generosity and warmth are reminders that, even as the city's dangers test the nerves and wits of its people, community can still be found in the least expected places. In the next part, we'll explore how the shifting seasons and unpredictable climate add another layer of challenge to life in ancient Greece, making every day a test of patience, resourcefulness, and resilience. In ancient Greece, the changing seasons shape every aspect of daily life, dictating what must be done, what can be hoped for, and what hardships must be endured. Spring brings renewal, fields green with barley, fruit trees flowering in courtyards, and the promise of new beginnings after a winter of hunger and cold. Farmers watch the skies, praying for rain at the right time, knowing that too much or too little will mean trouble when autumn comes. Shepherds move their flocks to higher pastures, children chase lambs through wild meadows, and the city buzzes with anticipation for upcoming festivals. Yet, this sense of renewal is always tempered by anxiety. A sudden frost or heavy storm can destroy weeks of careful work. The tools are simple, the labor backbreaking, and the whims of nature can undo even the best laid plans. Summer arrives with its own demands. The days grow long and hot, driving people to rise before dawn to work the fields, weed gardens, or repair crumbling walls. Shade becomes a precious commodity, and children splash in fountains or chase each other along the dusty lanes, their laughter mingling with the hum of cicadas. Wells run low, and water must be rationed with care. Those who live by the sea hope for a good catch, while inland towns brace for the season's inevitable wildfires. Festivals continue, marked by athletic competitions, music, and offerings to gods who might grant relief from heat or drought. As autumn approaches, the pace quickens. Harvest time is frantic, a race to gather olives, grapes, and grain before storms sweep in. Families work side by side, pressing oil, stomping grapes, and storing food for the lean months ahead. Even city dwellers join the rush, helping relatives in the countryside or trading for preserved goods in the marketplace. The air grows cooler, the days shorter, and preparations for winter become urgent. Every crack in the roof is patched, every scrap of fuel gathered and saved. Winter is the hardest season of all. The cold settles in, fires are kept burning night and day, and families huddle together for warmth. The diet narrows to whatever was stored: beans, dried figs, pickled vegetables, salted fish, and bread made from last year's grain. Illness spreads quickly in the damp, close quarters of city homes, and the weak or elderly are especially vulnerable. Yet, even in the darkest months, there are moments of hope. The lighting of lamps for a festival, the sharing of a rare treat, the telling of stories that remind everyone spring will return. The cycle of the seasons teaches patience and humility. Every harvest is celebrated with gratitude, every setback endured with a stubborn will to try again. People mark the passing of time with rituals and prayers, knowing that survival depends on both their own efforts and the favor of the gods. In the next part, we'll look deeper at the role of the gods and religious beliefs in ancient Greek life, and see how faith and ritual offer comfort, guidance, and sometimes fear to a people who live always at the mercy of fate and nature. Faith in the gods is the invisible thread running through every moment of ancient Greek life. From grand public festivals to private, whispered prayers at home, religion shapes decisions, comforts fears, and enforces the boundaries of right and wrong. The Greeks see the divine everywhere: in a sudden storm, a bountiful harvest, a child's laughter, or a neighbor's misfortune. Each city claims its own patron deity. Athens honors wise Athena, Sparta bows to warlike Ares, Corinth prays to Poseidon. Their temples rise above city walls, crowned with marble columns and bright paint, watched over by statues that seem almost alive in the shifting light. Every family maintains a small shrine, usually in the courtyard, where offerings of grain, oil, wine, or flowers are made each morning. Children learn to bow and murmur thanks before every meal, to recite prayers for health, luck, and protection. Major life events, birth, coming of age, marriage, illness, and death, are all marked with ritual sacrifices or feasts. The gods are generous, but also jealous and easily angered. Even a forgotten offering or careless word can bring misfortune. Priests and priestesses, sometimes chosen from noble families, interpret the will of the gods through ritual and divination. The smoke of a sacrificed animal, the pattern of birds in the sky, the dreams that visit sleepers, all are studied for meaning. Oracles, the most famous being at Delphi, draw pilgrims from across Greece and beyond, each seeker hoping for a glimpse of their destiny. A cryptic prophecy can shape the fate of a family or an entire city. The rituals of religion are woven into the calendar. Great festivals shut down ordinary life. The Olympic Games held in honor of Zeus, the Panathenaic festival for Athena, Dionysian celebrations filled with music, masks, and revelry. Everyone participates, regardless of wealth or age, and even slaves might be granted a day's rest. These celebrations reinforce the unity of the city and remind all of their place in a wider, cosmic order. Yet religious belief also brings anxiety. Unexplained illness, failed crops, or natural disasters are often seen as punishments for neglected duties or hidden sins. People seek comfort in prayer but live with the uneasy sense that the gods' moods are unpredictable and their justice sometimes cruel. Superstition thrives. Charms, amulets, and forbidden words fill the corners of daily life. providing a sense of control against a world that offers little certainty. Despite the burdens, faith gives meaning and structure. The belief that every act, no matter how small, matters to the gods encourages both kindness and caution. It fosters hope that the worst days will pass and the best days will return, if only one stays faithful. In the next part, we'll visit the places where young Greeks learned the lessons of life, not just from parents or priests, but in schools, training grounds, and the rough and tumble world of growing up, where every day brings new challenges and new dreams. Growing up in ancient Greece is both an adventure and a test of endurance, shaped by family tradition, the expectations of the city, and the ever-present watch of the gods. Childhood is brief and practical. Most children are expected to help with chores or learn their family's trade from a young age. Boys and girls live in different worlds from the moment they can walk. Boys are taught to be citizens, soldiers, and leaders. Their fathers and older brothers show them how to farm, build, debate, and defend their city. Education begins at home, with lessons in manners, myths, and prayers, and continues in the company of other boys. In Athens, those who can afford it attend school, where they learn to read and write, memorize poetry, solve basic math problems, and debate ethics. Teachers use wax tablets, wooden rulers, and stories of gods and heroes to make their points. Physical fitness is just as important as scholarship. Wrestling, running, discus, and javelin are everyday pursuits. The gymnasium is not just a training ground, but a center of social life, where boys form friendships and rivalries that may last a lifetime. In Sparta, childhood is even more demanding. Boys are taken from their families at age 7 to live in military barracks, where discipline is harsh and survival requires toughness, obedience, and cunning. Weakness is not tolerated, and the goal is to mold every boy into a fearless warrior, loyal to the city above all else. Girls in Athens spend their days at home, learning the skills of spinning, weaving, cooking, and managing a household. Their mothers and grandmothers teach them the prayers, songs, and rituals that structure each day. For most, marriage comes early, often in their mid-teens, binding them to the rhythms of family, childbirth, and domestic care. Spartan girls, by contrast, are encouraged to exercise and compete in sports, as the city believes strong mothers produce strong warriors. Yet even in Sparta, women's voices are limited, and their fate is closely tied to the men in their lives. Slaves' children, regardless of where they live, have the least freedom. They work alongside their parents, serve wealthier families, and often grow up with little hope for a different future. Despite this, children everywhere find moments for play, games of knucklebones, hoop rolling, or pretend battles with sticks and stones. They invent songs, swap stories, and sneak away for adventures in the hills or along the seashore, all under the wary gaze of their elders. Coming of age is marked by rituals and challenges, ceremonies where boys prove their strength or girls demonstrate their skill and readiness for adult life. These rites of passage are filled with both pride and anxiety, as each young person steps into a world where mistakes are costly and the path ahead uncertain. In the next part, we'll join the adults as they navigate work, politics, and family, showing how the lessons of youth shape their fortunes and failures in a society where every day is a balancing act between duty, ambition, and survival. Adulthood in ancient Greece is a constant negotiation between ambition and duty, personal desire and public reputation, family needs, and the unpredictable currents of fate. For men, much of life is lived in public. A farmer may rise before dawn to tend his olive trees or grapevines, but his day is not complete without a trip to the agora, where he debates city matters, hears news, and argues prices with merchants. Artisans labor for long hours in crowded workshops, carving marble, shaping bronze, or painting pottery, each striving to earn both a living and the respect of their peers. For those with political ambitions, public speaking and alliances are essential. Every decision is watched and judged, and failure to uphold civic duty can bring disgrace. The weight of expectation is heavy, especially for those born into prominent families. Sons are taught to honor their ancestors and strive for excellence, but they are also reminded that pride can bring ruin if it offends the gods or the community. Military service is a universal obligation for citizens. Every able-bodied man must train and be ready to defend the city from threats, foreign or domestic. Periodic drills and long campaigns take men far from home, often for months or years at a time. The rewards for bravery are great: public praise, prizes, and even statues, but the risks are real. Many never return, and those who do are marked by the hardships of war. Women, meanwhile, anchor the private world of home and kin. Their labor is constant, managing the household, weaving cloth, preparing food, and raising children. The work is demanding and largely invisible to outsiders, yet vital to the survival of the family. In wealthier homes, women may direct slaves or servants, but even they must account for every coin, every scrap of cloth, every loaf of bread. Friendship is a crucial support, especially among women, who share tasks and advice, swap remedies and stories, and stand together during crisis or celebration. Marriage is rarely a love match. It is a contract between families, carefully negotiated and maintained with effort. Husbands and wives may grow to respect or even cherish each other, but they live in a world where fidelity is strictly policed, at least for women, and where divorce can bring scandal or hardship. Children are the greatest blessing and greatest worry. Infant mortality is high, and every illness brings fear. Parents pray for their children's safety and future, teaching them the virtues and skills that will help them survive and thrive. Old age, for those lucky enough to reach it, brings a new set of challenges. The elderly may find comfort in the respect of children and grandchildren, but they also risk being seen as burdens if illness or poverty strikes. Still, their stories and wisdom are valued, and they play a key role in preserving family traditions and history. In this intricate web of obligations and aspirations, every day demands resilience, cleverness, and a measure of luck. In the next part, we'll look at how the city itself, its rules, customs, and institutions, shapes the lives of all its people, offering both opportunities and obstacles as they strive to leave their mark on a world that is both ancient and endlessly alive. Life in an ancient Greek city is a complex dance of order and chaos, shaped by strict laws, unwritten customs, and the vibrant push and pull of its citizens. At its heart is the polis, a self-governing city-state where every free man is expected to take part in public life. The city's walls offer some protection, but within them, people are constantly negotiating rights, responsibilities, and relationships. Laws are carved on stone tablets and displayed in public squares, read aloud by officials, so no one can claim ignorance. Justice is a public affair. Crimes, disputes, and debts are resolved before large juries of ordinary citizens who vote by dropping pebbles into urns. This system promises fairness, but it also brings unpredictability. The loudest or most persuasive voice can sway a crowd, and friendships or grudges sometimes tip the scales. Democracy is a source of pride, especially in Athens, where even the poor can speak and vote in the assembly. But democracy also requires endless energy. Citizens spend hours in debate, making decisions on taxes, wars, and building projects, while politicians work tirelessly to win support and outmaneuver rivals. Public service is both honor and burden. Those who shirk it face fines or social disgrace, yet not everyone belongs. Women, slaves, foreigners, and children are excluded from most political rights, their lives shaped by rules they cannot change. Even for citizens, status is everything. The wealthy hold more sway. Their money buying influence, education, and the chance to sponsor festivals or build monuments. The poor must work harder to be heard, banding together in alliances or seeking powerful patrons. Religion, too, is tightly woven into civic life. Every city has its patron gods and sacred festivals, and public funds are spent on temples, altars, and sacrifices. Major events, victories, disasters, the founding of new colonies are marked with elaborate processions, animal offerings, and games. Religious offices are sought after, and those who hold them gain both prestige and practical advantages. But the boundaries between sacred and profane are not always clear. Disputes over property, inheritance, or marriage can end up before both priests and magistrates, and rituals sometimes blend with politics in ways that spark controversy or conflict. The city's physical spaces reflect its values. The agora serves as market, courthouse, and meeting place, its colonnades lined with shops, statues, and shrines. The theater, gymnasium, and stadium host events that bring the entire community together, reinforcing pride and competition. Yet the city is also a place of poverty and exclusion. The poorest citizens live in cramped alleys, their voices drowned out by the clamor of the wealthy. Foreigners cluster in their own neighborhoods, offering exotic goods and skills but always watched warily by locals. Slaves and freedmen do the hardest work, building the city's walls and roads but seldom thanked or remembered. For all its grandeur, the city is fragile. A single bad harvest, a sudden epidemic, or an enemy at the gates can bring everything to a standstill. And so, life in the polis is a careful balancing act, requiring constant vigilance, adaptability, and the hope that, by following the rules and honoring the gods, one might find safety, meaning, and perhaps a measure of lasting fame. In the next part, we'll leave the city walls and journey into the countryside, discovering how farmers, shepherds, and villagers carve out their own existence far from the noise and intrigue of urban life. Beyond the city's walls lies the countryside, a patchwork of olive groves, vineyards, rugged hills, and scattered villages that feed the urban population and preserve a slower, older way of life. Life here is dictated by the rhythms of nature more than the laws of men. Farmers rise before dawn, walking rough tracks to fields that may have been tended by their ancestors for generations. Each season brings its own work and its own anxieties, plowing and sowing in the autumn rains, weeding and watering in the cool of spring, the long, back-breaking labor of summer harvests beneath a blazing sun. Shepherds guide their flocks across rocky hillsides, watching for wolves or thieves, and returning at dusk to small, smoky huts. Most country people are poor by city standards. Their homes are simple, mud brick or stone, with a few rough furnishings and perhaps a clay altar to Demeter or Pan. The diet is plain: bread, cheese, onions, and whatever fruits or greens are in season. Yet, the countryside offers a measure of independence. Neighbors know each other's histories. Families cooperate to share tools or help at harvest, and children grow up with the freedom to roam fields and streams, learning the secrets of plants and animals that city kids only know from stories. Life is harsh, but disasters are met together. If disease strikes a herd, or storms flatten the grain, the entire village feels the loss and gathers to help rebuild. Religion here is close to the land. People make offerings to local spirits, hang garlands in sacred groves, and mark the passing of seasons with feasts, dances, and songs. While news from the city may take days to arrive, most villagers follow their own customs, passing down stories and wisdom that link the present to the distant past. Country festivals are loud, joyous affairs, with music, contests, and communal meals, far less formal than the processions and speeches of the polis. Women play central roles, preparing food, organizing games, leading prayers for good weather or healthy children. The countryside is not immune to violence or hardship. Bandits sometimes prowl the roads, and rival villages may clash over land or water. When danger comes, people band together, fighting with whatever tools are at hand and relying on strong family ties for survival. For many, the greatest ambition is not political power or public glory, but enough food for the winter, a healthy family, and the peace of knowing the land will one day pass to their children. Yet, the countryside and city are closely linked. Farmers bring their goods to market, shepherds sell wool and cheese, and young people travel to the city for work or marriage. The exchange is not always fair. The city's needs often come first, but the bond between urban and rural life is vital to the survival of both. In the next part, we'll follow the footsteps of those who live on the move, traders, sailors, and wanderers whose journeys knit together the scattered world of ancient Greece, bringing news, danger, and the promise of distant wonders. The world of ancient Greece is not bound by city walls or farm fields alone. It is a landscape shaped by restless movement and the daring of those who travel. Traders, sailors, and wanderers form a living thread between distant communities, braving unpredictable seas, rugged mountain roads, and the uncertainties of foreign lands. The Mediterranean is their highway, dotted with ships of all shapes and sizes, each vessel crewed by men accustomed to hardship and risk. Merchants set sail at dawn, their holds packed with oil, wine, grain, or fine pottery, steering by the stars and the changing winds. Every journey is a gamble. Storms can blow up with little warning, pirates may lurk among the islands, and coastal towns sometimes welcome strangers with suspicion rather than friendship. Yet the lure of profit and adventure draws many to the sea, and even those who fear the ocean depend on the goods and stories it brings. Marketplaces come alive when a ship arrives. Spices from the east, jewelry from Egypt, tin and copper from faraway mines, strange animals, and rumors of new inventions or wars. Traders speak many languages and learn to read the gestures and customs of unfamiliar people. Some return home rich, their fortunes transformed. Others are lost to shipwreck, disease, or the trickery of rivals. Caravans of pack animals wind through mountain passes, carrying salt, timber, and rare minerals to places the ships cannot reach. Along every road are dangers. Robbers wait for easy prey, and bad weather can trap travelers for days in lonely valleys or mountain inns. Yet, travel also brings opportunities for friendship, learning, and the blending of cultures. Pilgrims journey to famous shrines, scholars seek teachers in distant cities, and exiles find new homes where their skills or songs are welcomed. Every traveler faces the challenge of adaptation, for laws and traditions shift from one place to another. A greeting that is polite in one city might offend in another, and a custom that is honored on one island may be unknown on the mainland. The Greeks are proud of their heritage, but they are also curious, eager to learn from the Egyptians, Phoenicians, Persians, and others who share their world. This mingling of ideas shapes art, philosophy, science, and even everyday life. The risks of the road and sea are offset by the hope of return, a safe harbor, a waiting family, and the tales and treasures that will set a traveler apart. When night falls in a strange town, a wanderer relies on the old laws of hospitality, trusting that a host will offer bread, shelter, and news. For those left behind, the return of a loved one is cause for celebration, and the sharing of stories over food and wine is a ritual as old as the first voyages. In the next part, we'll step inside the workshops and academies where ideas are forged and passed on, exploring how the hunger for knowledge and the art of teaching shape both the brightest minds and the practical crafts that keep the world of ancient Greece in motion. Within the cities and towns of ancient Greece, the thirst for knowledge shapes daily life as much as the pursuit of profit or power. Education, in its many forms, is deeply valued, even as it remains a privilege for the fortunate. Philosophers, teachers, and skilled artisans each have their own places to share and hone ideas, creating a culture where learning and debate flourish. For the sons of wealthy families, formal schooling begins early. Boys walk to the home of a teacher or gather in public porticos, carrying wax tablets and styluses, eager to recite verses of Homer or practice arithmetic on small abacuses. Lessons are a mix of discipline and delight, memorization, recitation, and discussion, but also singing, music, and the study of sports. Rhetoric, the art of speaking persuasively, becomes the cornerstone of a good education, for those who hope to influence the assembly or courts must learn to sway a crowd. The most ambitious travel to hear famous philosophers, Socrates challenging young men in the agora, Plato gathering followers in a shady garden, Aristotle debating science and logic with sharp-tongued students. These thinkers ask questions that challenge old certainties about justice, happiness, the nature of the soul, and the structure of the universe. Their debates draw crowds, and even those who cannot read are swept up in the excitement of argument and new ideas. But not all learning is lofty. The majority of Greeks, both urban and rural, learn through hands-on apprenticeship. Craftsmen teach their children, or young helpers, to shape bronze, carve wood, weave cloth, and fire pottery. Bakers, blacksmiths, and builders pass on their secrets in busy workshops, where every mistake carries a cost. Pride in skill is fierce, and a craftsman's reputation depends on the quality of his work and his willingness to innovate or adapt. Women, for the most part, are educated at home by mothers, aunts, or older sisters. They learn to run a household, manage servants, keep accounts, and ensure that the family's reputation remains spotless. In rare cases, women from wealthy or artistic families may become poets, priestesses, or healers, celebrated for their wisdom, and invited to share their insights at festivals or religious gatherings. The hunger for knowledge drives Greeks to collect books and scrolls, though few homes have more than a handful. Public libraries in major cities allow the curious to read works from across the world, while traveling poets and storytellers bring news and legends to even the smallest villages. Curiosity is matched by a practical desire for progress. Physicians experiment with herbs and anatomy, engineers devise new tools, and astronomers watch the stars, mapping the heavens for sailors and priests alike. Arguments about truth, ethics, and the gods spill over into every corner of life, shaping laws, art, and the very way people think about themselves and their place in the world. In the next part, we'll explore how illness, injury, and the ever-present threat of death forced the people of ancient Greece to invent, adapt, and search for meaning in the face of uncertainty, relying on both the latest ideas and the oldest traditions to ease their suffering. Illness, injury, and the inescapable reality of death are facts of life in ancient Greece, shaping the thoughts and actions of every person, no matter their status or ambition. The Greeks do not take health for granted. Every cough or wound is a potential threat, and the line between life and death is thinner than most today can imagine. The streets of the city and the fields of the countryside are filled with dangers: sharp tools, dirty water, sudden storms, and the spread of disease in crowded homes. Most families keep a store of simple remedies: herbs for fevers, garlic and honey for wounds, wool soaked in wine to clean a cut. Mothers and grandmothers are the first healers, their knowledge passed down through generations, blending tradition with trial and error. When home remedies fail, people seek out physicians, whose skills range from rudimentary to surprisingly advanced. Some doctors are little more than herbalists or barbers, but others study anatomy, record their findings, and try new treatments. always watched with skepticism by those who still believe that illness is sent by the gods. Temples dedicated to healing gods like Asclepius offer another path. The sick travel for days to sleep in a holy sanctuary, hoping for a healing dream or a sign from the priests. Ritual, prayer, and offerings are as much a part of the healing process as any medicine. Yet even the best treatments have limits. There are no antibiotics or painkillers, no real surgery as we know it. Plagues can sweep through cities, leaving heartbreak and fear. Childbirth is especially perilous. Women pray to Artemis and make offerings for safe delivery, but many mothers and infants are lost despite all efforts. Death is ever present, mourned, feared, and ritualized. Funerals bring the community together. Neighbors gather to mourn, share food, and tell stories of the departed, hoping to keep their memory alive and win favor for their souls in the afterlife. Graves are marked with stones, offerings are buried with the dead, and the living tend family tombs, believing that care for the dead will bring blessings to the living. The Greeks wrestle with big questions. Is illness a punishment, a random misfortune, or a test of character? What happens after death? Philosophers and poets offer many answers, but for most people, comfort is found in familiar rituals, the presence of loved ones, and the hope that the gods will show mercy. Even in suffering, there is resilience, a stubborn determination to endure, to adapt, and to find moments of laughter or beauty despite the darkness. In the next part, we'll see how the people of ancient Greece used stories, art, and imagination to make sense of the world's cruelty, finding solace and strength in the myths and creativity that still echo across time. Stories and imagination are the lifeblood of ancient Greek culture, helping people endure suffering, celebrate joy, and make sense of the unpredictable world around them. From the humblest farmstead to the grandest city, myths and legends echo in daily conversation, art, and ritual. Every family knows tales of Zeus's thunderbolts, Athena's wisdom, and the tragic journeys of heroes like Odysseus or Heracles. These stories are more than entertainment. They offer explanations for misfortune and hope in the face of hardship. When storms destroy a harvest, parents remind their children of Demeter's grief for Persephone. When bravery is needed, tales of Theseus slaying the Minotaur inspire courage. Local legends flourish too. Every hill, spring, and grove has its own spirit or guardian, and people leave offerings or tell stories to keep favor with these unseen powers. The art of storytelling is celebrated everywhere. Poets and bards travel from town to town, reciting epics or improvising songs for coins and food. At home, families gather by lamp or hearth to share tales, some drawn from tradition, others invented on the spot to calm fears or teach lessons. Children grow up with riddles, fables, and cautionary stories, learning the values and boundaries of their world through imagination. Art brings these myths to life. Temples are decorated with carvings of gods and monsters, while painted vases show scenes of triumph, love, or loss. Mosaics and murals adorn public buildings, reminding citizens of their shared heritage and the dangers of hubris or disobedience. Even the simplest objects, a cup, a toy, a spindle, may bear the images of deities or legendary deeds, connecting everyday life to the grand sweep of history and legend. Theater is another way the Greeks confront life's challenges. Tragedies and comedies staged in open-air amphitheaters tackle the biggest questions: fate, justice, love, revenge, allowing audiences to share grief or laughter in public, a kind of emotional cleansing. The greatest playwrights, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes, are revered not just as artists, but as teachers, their works helping shape the morals and dreams of entire generations. These creative traditions do more than distract from hardship. They offer wisdom, comfort, and a sense of belonging. Even in the darkest times, when disaster or loss feels overwhelming, the Greeks turned to stories, art, and song to find meaning. Through the power of imagination, they connect to ancestors and to each other, weaving a fabric of memory and hope that endures through centuries. In the next part, we'll witness how the cycle of war and peace, so familiar in ancient Greece, affects every household, reminding everyone that life is always balanced between the promise of prosperity and the threat of sudden upheaval. War and peace form a cycle that marks the passage of generations in ancient Greece, shaping the fortunes of cities and the fates of families. Conflict is ever present, whether between rival city-states, rebellious neighbors, or distant empires that threaten the fragile balance of the Greek world. Even in times of quiet, the possibility of war hangs heavy in the air, woven into the stories told at the hearth and the prayers offered at dawn. Every citizen is aware that alliances can shift overnight, and that disputes over land, honor, or trade may erupt into violence without warning. For the men of the polis, military training is part of growing up. From a young age, boys watch their fathers drill in the dusty fields outside the city walls, learning to march in formation, wield a spear, and trust their lives to the shield wall. Veterans tell tales of past battles, both victories and humiliations, passing on lessons in bravery, caution, and cunning. The sound of the war trumpet, when it comes, is both a call to duty and a reminder of what might be lost. Campaigns are grueling. Soldiers march for days, carrying heavy armor and supplies, sleeping rough, and living on rations of bread, onions, and dried fish. Battles are chaotic and brutal, lines of men crashing together, the air filled with shouts, the clash of bronze, and the dust of trampled earth. Victory brings glory and the promise of spoils, but defeat can mean enslavement, exile, or death. Even those who survive carry scars, both seen and unseen. Back home, the cost of war is felt in every household. Women and the elderly manage farms, businesses, and children alone, worrying over news from the front and making do with fewer hands and fewer resources. When the city suffers defeat or siege, hunger and fear become daily realities. Prisoners are ransomed or sold, temples are looted, and families are torn apart. Yet, in peace, the city rejoices. Victorious warriors are welcomed with festivals, songs, and sacrifices to the gods. New alliances are sealed with feasts, marriages, and promises of shared prosperity. The wounds of war are slow to heal, but hope returns. A repaired home, a bountiful harvest, a child born after a long absence. War stories are told and retold, shaping the next generation's understanding of courage, loss, and the value of peace. Through it all, resilience endures. The Greeks believed that suffering and struggle are part of life's natural order, challenges sent by the gods to test and refine the soul. In every battered city and quiet village, people find ways to rebuild, to forgive old enemies, and to celebrate survival. The cycle continues, marked by the steady beat of drums and the fleeting sweetness of peace. In the next part, we'll return to the quiet moments between conflict and crisis, festivals, marriages, and family milestones, where the joys and hopes of everyday life shine brightest against the shadows of an uncertain world. Between wars and misfortune, the Greeks cherish moments of celebration, festivals, marriages, and family milestones that bring joy and purpose to ordinary days. Life is hard, but the rhythms of tradition provide structure and hope, reminding everyone that even the briefest happiness is worth savoring. Festivals are the beating heart of community. Every city, village, and family honors its patron gods and ancestors with music, food, and spectacle. Streets are decorated with garlands, public squares fill with laughter, and even the poorest citizens are drawn into games, dances, and feasts. Some festivals last for days, shutting down business and work so that all may join in processions, athletic contests, sacrifices, and dramatic performances. Children wear their finest clothes. Elders recount the origins of the celebrations, and neighbors compete in good-natured rivalry. These events reinforce bonds between families, inspire acts of generosity, and keep ancient stories alive. Marriages are equally important, both a social contract and a cause for festivity. Families spend months arranging matches, consulting omens, and negotiating dowries. The wedding ceremony is a blend of solemn ritual and riotous celebration, offerings to Hera and Zeus, the joining of hands, songs of blessing, and a parade through the city so all may witness the new union. Guests shower the couple with gifts and advice, sharing wine and laughter until late into the night. For the bride, marriage is a moment of both joy and anxiety, a new home, new duties, and the hope for healthy children to continue the family line. Family milestones, whether a child's birth, a coming-of-age haircut, or the celebration of a long life, are marked with equal care. Relatives gather to share meals, exchange gifts, and tell stories that stitch the past to the present. Naming ceremonies, haircuttings, and memorials for the dead are opportunities to reaffirm ties and pass on values. Even small victories, a bumper harvest, the safe return of a traveler, or the recovery from illness, become reasons to gather and give thanks. These occasions are not without tension. Disputes over dowries, rivalries between clans, and old grievances sometimes flare up amid the festivities. Still, the act of coming together, of honoring the gods and each other, is a powerful salve against the loneliness and hardship of daily life. Music, laughter, and shared memory provide comfort, while ritual and repetition give people a sense of control over fate. As the stars rise and the lamps burn low, families retreat to their homes, hearts warmed by celebration, hopeful that the gods will grant them peace and plenty in the days to come. In the next part, we'll journey through the world of old age in ancient Greece, discovering how elders find meaning, respect, and challenges as they navigate a society that both reveres and fears the passage of time. Old age in ancient Greece is a time of reflection, challenge, and, when fortune allows, honor. Elders are seen as living bridges to the past, their memories and wisdom treasured by families and communities alike. Yet growing old brings its own trials, declining strength, shifting roles, and the daily struggle to remain useful and respected in a society where survival often depends on the energy of youth. The lives of elders vary widely. In wealthy households, an aged patriarch or matriarch may preside over large gatherings, telling stories that trace the family line through generations, offering advice on everything from business deals to religious rituals. These elders are deferred to in important decisions and honored at feasts, their opinions sought before any major change. In smaller or poorer families, the elderly often remain deeply involved in daily work, tending gardens, watching over grandchildren, weaving, or repairing tools. Their hands may be twisted by arthritis or scarred by a lifetime of labor, but their presence is a comfort and a guide. The bond between generations is reinforced by custom. Grandchildren learn stories and songs at an elder's knee, while parents rely on grandparents for childcare, support, and the wisdom to resolve disputes or avert bad luck. Elders lead prayers at family shrines, instruct the young in the proper ways to honor the gods, and help organize rituals for the dead, ensuring that ancestors are remembered and respected. Respect for age is strong, but not absolute. As strength wanes and the ability to contribute fades, some elders risk being seen as burdens, especially in times of hardship. A childless widow, a disabled grandfather, or an impoverished couple may rely on the charity of kin or neighbors, their fate uncertain if the family cannot provide. Laws in some cities offer protections for the old, but dignity often depends on the goodwill and traditions of those around them. The old contend with loneliness as friends pass away and children marry or leave home. Illness is ever present, and recovery is slow or uncertain. Yet, many elders find solace in ritual, conversation, and the quiet pride of a life endured. Their stories serve as both warning and inspiration, reminders of past triumphs, lessons in resilience, and proof that the hardest days can be survived. The Greeks hold ceremonies to honor elders, especially those who have contributed to the city or served in war. Statues may be erected, or names inscribed on stones for all to see. At festivals, elders are often given a place of honor, their presence a blessing to the community. Through the cycle of seasons, the laughter of grandchildren, and the respect shown at every meal or gathering, old age is given meaning, a final chapter that, for all its trials, is as rich in purpose as any youth. In the next part, we'll contemplate the passing of time itself, following how the Greeks mark endings and new beginnings, through rituals, remembrance, and the quiet hope that each life, no matter how humble, leaves a mark on the world. The passage of time in ancient Greece is marked by rituals, remembrances, and the ongoing hope that every life, no matter how ordinary, adds something lasting to the world. Time is not measured only by the turning of seasons or the aging of faces, but by the ceremonies and traditions that give meaning to beginnings and endings. Each year is a tapestry of festivals, sacrifices, and anniversaries, each linked to the cycles of the earth and the histories of ancestors. Birth is greeted with joy and ceremony, offerings to the gods, a naming ritual on the 7th or 10th day, and a gathering of family and friends to bless the child's future. A lock of the baby's hair is often cut as a gift to the household gods, a symbol of gratitude and hope. The first steps, the first words, the first successful chores, all are celebrated as milestones, woven into the story of the family. Coming of age is marked with greater formality. Boys are presented at the local shrine, or in the city's gymnasium, their hair shorn in a rite of passage, prayers offered for strength, wisdom, and luck. Girls' transitions are quieter, celebrated at home with songs, offerings, and advice from mothers and aunts about marriage, motherhood, and duty. Weddings, as unions of families and fortunes, are grand affairs, but funerals hold a unique importance. When a loved one dies, the entire community gathers, neighbors, friends, and distant kin, to mourn, remember, and affirm the connections that bind the living and the dead. The body is washed, anointed, wrapped in cloth, and displayed for a day or more, so mourners may pay respects and share stories. Processions wind through the streets, with laments sung by women and offerings of food and drink left at the grave. Every year, families return to tend tombs, pour libations, and recall those who have gone before. Memory is sacred, and the belief that the dead watch over the living shapes daily choices and family loyalty. Anniversaries of both joy and loss are kept with equal care. Victories in war or sport are remembered with feasts and songs. Disasters or betrayals are recounted as warnings to future generations. Even everyday objects, cups, tools, fragments of pottery, become heirlooms, handed down with tales of their origins and the hands that once held them. The Greeks believed that a good life is one remembered well, whether in the tales of grandchildren, the lines of a poem, or the stones of a tomb. Through ritual, storytelling, and the honoring of both ancestors and descendants, time is given meaning. The quiet hope persists that, for all the uncertainty and struggle, each life leaves its own gentle mark, a story that endures beyond the final turning of the seasons. In the next part, we'll step back and look at the larger legacy of ancient Greece, how its ideas, art, and spirit continue to echo far beyond its narrow valleys and shining seas, shaping worlds yet to come. The legacy of ancient Greece stretches far beyond the boundaries of its city-states. echoing across centuries and continents. Ideas born in crowded agoras and quiet academies find new life in distant lands and future ages. Artisans' hands, poets' words, and philosophers' questions shape not just the Greek world, but the wider story of humanity. The Greeks themselves sense that they are part of something larger. Travelers and traders return with tales of far-off peoples, but it is their own customs and achievements that fill them with the deepest pride. The marble temples of Athens and Olympia stand as testaments to skill and faith, while theaters, stadiums, and libraries remind all who visit of a culture dedicated to excellence in mind, body, and spirit. The works of artists, potters, sculptors, weavers carry images of gods, heroes, and daily life to every corner of the Mediterranean, their beauty admired by neighbors and strangers alike. Storytellers recite the adventures of Odysseus, the labors of Heracles, the wisdom of Solon, planting seeds of inspiration for generations. Philosophers debate the nature of justice, reality, and the soul, their questions opening doors that no conqueror or king can close. In this world, curiosity is as powerful as courage, and the pursuit of knowledge rivals the glory of battle. The Olympic Games, born of local rivalry, become a symbol of peace and unity, drawing athletes from rival cities to compete and celebrate together. Theaters host tragedies and comedies that explore not just the joys and failures of mortals, but the complexities of power, desire, and fate. Even the humblest festivals and household rituals reflect a drive for meaning and connection that endures through changing fortunes. Yet, the Greeks know their world is fragile. Empires rise and fall, invasions sweep across the land, and the proudest cities can be humbled by plague, war, or betrayal. Change is constant, and even the greatest achievements are shadowed by loss and the slow erosion of time. Still, each generation renews the effort to build, learn, and remember. Children are taught the old stories and new skills, growing up with the hope of leaving their own mark on a world that values memory as much as ambition. Through struggle and celebration, the Greeks teach that life's greatest meaning is found not in comfort or security, but in striving, seeking beauty, wisdom, and connection even in hardship. Their legacy is a living thing. It travels with sailors and scholars, shapes the dreams of distant rulers, and survives in the laws, art, and stories of peoples yet unborn. In the next part, we'll return one last time to the everyday world of ancient Greece, spending a single imagined day with its people, and feeling firsthand the challenges, comforts, and quiet moments that show why few today would last even a day in their sandals. Imagine, for a moment, living a single day in ancient Greece, not as a hero or a legend, but as an ordinary person, waking to the world described in all these stories. The dawn is brisk and filled with duty. You rise from your straw mat, joints stiff from the hard floor in yesterday's work, greeted by the voices of family and neighbors, already at their morning chores. The air is fresh, but tinged with the smoke of early fires, and as you step outside, the narrow streets bustle with life, vendors calling out, animals bleating, children running barefoot through the dust. You begin with tasks handed down for generations, fetching water from the well, kneading dough, mending nets, or tending the fields. Every step is shaped by routine, necessity, and the ever-present awareness of your place in the world. Meals are simple, bread torn from a shared loaf, olives or cheese, and a cup of watered wine. As you eat, you listen for news, rumors of new laws, talk of distant wars, or the latest scandal at the marketplace. There are always worries about the weather, the harvest, a child's cough, or the possibility of famine or war. But there is also laughter, a neighbor's joke, the song of a street musician, a shared memory of past festivals. By midday, The sun is high, and the city slows. You find relief in shade, sharing a story or a meal with friends, or taking a rare moment of rest as the world grows drowsy with heat. Children's games echo down alleyways, and in quiet corners, a philosopher debates the meaning of justice or the path to happiness. Work resumes as the shadows lengthen, craftsmen hammering in workshops, women weaving in courtyards, farmers checking their flocks, and elders teaching grandchildren to honor the gods. The weight of tradition and expectation is real, but so is the pride in belonging to something greater than yourself, a family, a city, a story that stretches back to the first legends. Evening brings relief in ritual, lamps are lit, and families gather for a final meal, giving thanks to the household gods for another day survived. Stories are told by lamplight, prayers offered, and small kindnesses exchanged. The city outside quiets, though far-off laughter and the music of a distant festival sometimes float in through open windows. Night falls, bringing a mixture of fear and hope. You check the door's wooden bar, comfort a restless child, or simply stare into the darkness, thinking of what tomorrow might bring. Despite exhaustion, there is a deep, stubborn resilience, a sense that, in this world of hardship and joy, every moment is precious, and every small victory matters. To last a day in ancient Greece is to endure, adapt, and find meaning in challenge, a lesson passed down from countless lives that came before. In the final part, we'll let these echoes linger, feeling the quiet power of the ordinary, and letting the voices of the past remind us why the world of ancient Greece, for all its glory and hardship, remains unforgettable. As the imagined day in ancient Greece draws to a close, a hush settles over the city and countryside alike. The lamps flicker and burn low, casting soft golden light on stone walls and worn faces, while voices fade to whispers and dreams. You feel the ache of tired muscles and the gratitude of a belly filled, however modestly. The cares of survival, so many and so urgent during the daylight, soften for a moment in the darkness. All around you, others follow similar rituals. A mother humming a prayer for her sleeping child, an old man stoking the last embers of the hearth, young lovers whispering plans for the future under the stars. The world beyond the door is never truly silent. Dogs bark in the alleys, a rooster calls before dawn. The wind carries the scent of olives and earth, but within the home there is a sense of safety, fleeting though it may be. This is the quiet at the heart of ancient Greek life, a pause between effort and uncertainty, where family, memory, and the old stories bring a rare comfort. In this silence, you sense the deeper threads that bind the generations, the lessons learned through hardship, the kindnesses exchanged without thought, the moments of laughter snatched between chores. These are what sustain a people across centuries of change. The shadows in the corners are not just fears, but reminders of those who came before, ancestors honored at shrines, friends lost to war or famine, children whose first cries echo the hopes of 1,000 years. The city outside may rise and fall, but the small routines endure. Tomorrow you and those around you will wake again to the challenges of a world both beautiful and harsh. You will shoulder burdens, celebrate victories, face disappointments, and make choices shaped by forces both seen and unseen. What remains is not marble or legend, but the quiet dignity of endurance, an inheritance more precious than gold or fame. To live even a single day in ancient Greece is to walk a narrow path between pride and humility, isolation and belonging, uncertainty and hope. It is to know that comfort is rare, safety uncertain, and yet meaning is always within reach. As you finally drift toward sleep, the voices of the past linger in your mind, stories of gods, heroes, and ordinary people whose lives were as real and urgent as your own. And in that final, peaceful darkness, you understand why few today would last even a day in their sandals, and why the memory of this world endures, quiet and powerful, calling us back to listen once more.